Welcome to this video and welcome to a whole new timing experience. With the Ubidium foldable ground antenna, we are introducing the next generation of UHF timing technology. And today it's time to get our hands on this product. I'll show you some basics of assembling, disassembling, putting it on the road, and also some insights into its technology. So let's get right into it and see how to put this thing on the road. Setting up the antenna is done just like with our previous antenna. Simply place it vertically, grab the last segment and pull it across the street. The segments of the mat are a bit longer now. We have 6 instead of 8 elements in the 4.6 meter standard configuration, with each element being 77 centimeters long. The material is also a bit more flexible, so make sure to position the antenna on even ground and not across a curb, for example, otherwise the segment might be bent when stepped on. In this video here you can see that setting it up this way even works with 20 segments combined into one timing line, as demonstrated at the Marseille-Cassis road race, one of the most famous in France. After you race, you take the second element and pull it towards you. If you lift a segment, you might accidentally only lift its cover. So really pull it towards you. Once you have your accordion, you can close it and attach the strap. And we recommend folding the mat with the red covers on the outside to make sure those lips are not deformed when you tighten the strap. So next point is connecting the mat to your Ubidium device. We have here the mat in the standard configuration, 4.6 meters, 6 elements, plus roughly 1.8 meters connection cable. We take the cable and use the bottom backside plug of the Ubidium. It's called the expansion port. And we have a red dot here on the plug and we have a red dot here on the Ubidium. And we align those red dots and just push it in. You might hear a click, you will feel once it's fully plugged in, and then you are done. To remove the ground antenna from the Ubidium, you use this ring here and you just pull it out straight. Important here is not to twist this connector when pulling it out like you might be used to from our previous ground antenna. So we have small pins here inside. So if you would twist it, you would probably damage those pins. So again, important. Plug it in straight and pull it out straight to not damage anything here. And then you just close this cover and you're done. And please remember to always plug in the antenna first and then switch on your Ubidium device, also the other way around. Switch it off first and then unplug your antenna. And now let's take a closer look at the components of this mat. We have the cable with a plug and then the single segments, which consist of a cover and a bottom part. Inside we now have a reader element in every antenna segment. Before we had one reader in the decoder and the antennas in the mat. Now UHF reader and antenna are inside those segments. This allows us to combine up to 30 segments, creating a 23 meter wide timing mat with just one Ubidium connected. The elements are connected to this cable here with a screw similar to those you know from photo equipment. And we recommend using a screwdriver to tighten and loosen this screw, and we ship this screwdriver here with every antenna. But for example, using a coin is also a good alternative if you don't have the screwdriver with you. And then you can just lift this connector, and as you can see there are some electronic contacts down here, so handle this one with care to just not damage it. The connector cable is two-stranded. The first strand goes to the first element and the second to the second reader element. From element 1, a cable goes to element 3 and 5 and so on. And similarly from element 2 to element 4, 6, 8 and so on, creating two independent strands. So if one should fail for whatever reason, you'll still get detections from the other one. And this comes in handy when splitting or extending the mat. So now splitting the antenna. You can do this after every second element, and we even put some markers here on the black part that you can see where splitting is possible and where splitting makes sense at all. So let's say we want to split it here. We have to open the left and the right segment from the split by just lifting up the red part. Same on the other side. Just put the red covers to the side. Now our split is here. We have two cables crossing this split point, so we now need to remove them. The first cable comes from here and goes to this antenna element, and the other cable comes from here and goes to this element, so we need to remove those two screws, just like I showed you before, using the screwdriver. Again, very important here to shut down your Ubidium before you start splitting the mat. And now you can easily remove this cable, and we do the same thing with the other cable. Remove it and bring it here. This cable gets parked here. You screw in the screw here on the connector, put it in, push it down. It's important to push it down. Then we can insert the cable into its channel, and we're done. So the cable is parked here, and we do it the same way on the other side. So take the cable, push down the screw to make sure it's not too high when you later put the red elements back on. So get the cable into its position, and now you have two separate elements, and we can split it using the screwdriver again and getting off the hinges. You know them from our previous antennas. Same thing. And now we have two separate mat elements. Important to note here is to put the cable into its parking position and not to plug it into this last antenna element here, because this will create a mess in the synchronization of the mats. So each segment of the mat knows I am number 1, I am number 2, I am number 3, and they can resynchronize once you've split the mat. But if you put this cable in here, this will mess up your synchronization, and you may even damage the cable if you put it around this edge here. So just put it into its parking position. The electronics are robust enough, and you can just park them here and you're done. Also important to note, do not connect Ubidiums on both sides of a mat. One side is enough, and both sides it will just not work and impair your functionality. So one Ubidium for one antenna. Once we are done with splitting, we can put the red covers back on. So those are the covers. The material you see is a bit different from what we used to have in our old antennas. You need to get used to how to close it properly, but you'll soon manage, I'm pretty sure. On the inner side, we have those profiles here. Remember the profiles, and also remember those, what our developers call mushrooms. So here's a mushroom here and two on the outside. We need them later. So first we make sure all cables are in their channel and all connectors are in their position, pushed down or screwed in, and then we can align the red cover on the black bottom part. And first thing we do is we push down the middle part. The profiles I just showed you are into position now, and this red thing cannot move anymore. Now we proceed with the edges. Trick here is to lift the edge a bit and push outward. So I'm using the palm, push outward and push this thing into position here. It's now pressed down. Same here, lift the edges, press outward, and it's in. Now we push down the mushroom I showed you before, and we can bring the rest of this part into position. Same on the other side. So the last thing we now need to do is, you remember the mushrooms I told you about? So the mushrooms are somewhere around here, and we need to press down those mushrooms. You hear the click, and this is especially important as those mushrooms make sure the distance between the antenna inside and the red plastics is always the same. So the antenna is tuned to this special distance, and pressing down the mushrooms makes sure this is always constantly the same. Okay, so let's also do it the other way around. You can extend your mat by adding 2 segments, and you do it basically the same way. First thing is we remove the covers on both sides, of course. Then we connect the hinges. And now this cable goes from its parking position to this antenna element, and this cable goes to this element. So first take out both cables. And now first step is to connect it and tighten the screw. Again, using a screwdriver is recommended here. The screw is connected, and second step is to put the cable into its channel, gently pushing it down, and you do it the same way with the second cable. Connect it here in the first step and then bring the cable into its position, and you're done. You can put the red covers back on, and that's it. The mat is designed to be robust against water and mud, but should it be exposed to really a lot of water, let's say you have like 5 centimeter water on the street, you should open the segments after your race to make sure they properly dry on the inside. Water itself will not damage the cables or the elements, but corrosion could be an issue over time, so give your mat the chance to dry on the inside if necessary. The mat can also be driven over by heavy vehicles. We recently had this mobile crane at our headquarters and took the chance to let it drive over the mat. The antenna elements were still reading afterwards. With all this fancy technology inside here, this is still no dream machine. Means you still need to remember the basic rules of UHF timing. Maintaining a direct line of sight between your transponder and the antenna, not covering the antenna with things like carpets, and avoid having sand on the mat. Keeping all this in mind, I'm pretty sure you'll have a lot of fun using this new Ubidium foldable ground antenna. Don't forget to subscribe to this channel to not miss the next videos. Thanks for watching, and see you next time.